You can't. You just can't. It's not possible. When I think about what I wanted to talk about today, I was like, wait a minute. How do you change somebody's mind, right? And I've been arguing a lot on Instagram, Twitter. I've just been arguing in general a lot more recently. Like just arguing, just going at niggas. And I was thinking about it, right? Like for real, why? Why do I argue so much? Why is anybody arguing? Why are we all like trying to change someone's mind, right? Like, why are you trying to change somebody's mind? And I thought about it. And thinking about it, I was like, because it's natural to want to, right? You want somebody to see the world from where you're coming from your perspective, from your eyes, which it's not possible. You can't just change someone's mind. But what I do genuinely believe is that you can and you should encourage people to change their own minds. And that sounds dumb and counterproductive when I say it out loud, but I mean every word of it. When I think about what gets people to change their minds, it's never the fact that you were talking to them. It's the fact that you sat down and you tried to understand them. So in that understanding of their opinion and what was coming out of their mouths, you were able to develop an actual argument. Like you were able to create an argument that wasn't just what you were told about them, but a genuine response to what they had to say. And I think that's what we got to do. Just period. No matter what kind of conversation it is, right? Because if you're arguing about something you genuinely believe is right, you should be able to point to not only facts, not only statistics, but to just examples. Not just in your own life, but in the lives of other people, right? And I feel like if you're not educated enough on what's happening, then you shouldn't be arguing in the first place. It's only after educating yourself that you'll even have a chance of getting somebody to see where you're coming from. Because if you can't see where you're coming from, then there's no reason to try to convince somebody else that you're right. Because you don't even know why you're right. And I was thinking a lot about an Instagram conversation I had with this dude in the comments of a Black Lives Matter post, and he was talking to some people about like, oh yeah, you guys talking about all cops are bad, all cops are bastards. And he was like, why would you say that? Like, come on, guys. You know what? My father used to be a police officer. Come on, guys. And people were just taking a fat dump on him. Like they were just dumping on him. Like they were just dumping on him. And like it was crazy to me because I was like, on the one hand, right? Like, I mean, a cab, all cab. You know what I'm saying? All we the team. You know? But at the same time, I was thinking like, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna argue. And at the end of the argument, he said, "That's probably the best argument I've heard all day. I think I've changed my mind on a few things." And I'm gonna go over what happened, right? So, bro was talking about like all cops aren't bad, right? There are good cops, and then we talked about it. And I told him, "Hey, when I say all cops are bad, or when anybody says all cops are bad, it's not from a place of we hate police officers, but there are bad police officers who do bad things, and then other police officers don't report them doing bad things, right? So in that perspective, if one cop is bad, but the rest of the police department doesn't report that nigga, they're bad as well. So by association, all cops are bad, right? That's the premise of the idea. And then bro started talking, and bro made the point that all cops can't be bad because plenty of cops report the behavior, right? So in response to that, I was thinking, and in my mind, I thought, but you're just saying that the institution is bad, but the people who are in the institution are reporting it, right? And I broke it down to him, and I said, why are these injustices happening? Why are these happening? And I was like, hey, these things are bad, and they're bad because the system is in the wrong. But the system is made up of people. The reason all cops are bad, we get it, not all police officers are bad, but just the fundamental idea that a man could be shot for going to a peaceful protest and all the police officers there had their body cameras off, right? There was an institutional failure that stems from the fact that not enough police officers in that precinct were good. And if one of them fails, and nobody speaks up about it, nobody says we should do the right thing here, right, guys? Then to that end, the system that failed that one man, everyone in that system has to be held accountable. The system is bad, therefore the people in the system is bad. And he talked to me about it, and he realized that while there are good police officers per se, right? The thing is, there aren't enough of them for the institution to not fail people. And that's where the argument comes from. But because I was able to think through it, and because I was able to speak my mind and just break down what he was saying and not what I thought he was saying, he changed his opinion on the situation. And he changed his opinion on what was happening, right? And I think a lot of people don't have the patience or the time or the ability to just sit down and say, I'm going to hear you. And I think that's not just a problem on people who are in agreement with me, right? That's also a problem with like people who are far right, people who are far left. This is just a thing that our society is encouraged. And I think that's the problem, right? The problem is that not enough people are encouraging listen and then speak. Hear what he has to say and argue that point, right? Like, you don't have to make it about like anything besides that argument because you're not going to change his mind. You're going to present them with evidence. You have to present them with, hey, this happens. This is a thing, right? This is what we're doing. And through that presentation, through that gradual dripping of knowledge, through that, hey, this is how I see it, and this is why I'm saying that, that person will be able to re-examine their own opinion and say, maybe what I was saying wasn't as informed as it should have been. And like, it's not just us. It's not just me. It's not just like Black Lives Matter. It's not just ACAB. It's so many different things and organizations, right? Like, it's so much. It's a lot, right? It's a lot. But what I can say is definitely that everybody's got to improve and everybody's got to become a better person. Just factually, right? Like, we all got to just listen to each other a lot more. And when it comes down to it, right, we just need to be more understanding before we argue. Because there's no problem with arguing. I'm all for a good argument. But you shouldn't approach an argument with, I'm right, you're wrong, but I believe that I'm right. And I'm going to get you to see why I believe that I'm right. Because if I get you to see why I believe that I'm right, then you'll start to believe too. And if you don't, right, that's perfectly fine. Because I can't force you to think a certain way. All I can do is try to encourage you to be able to have a flexible opinion. To be able to say, my opinion isn't set in stone. We can do this. We can change. It's malleable. And I don't have to see eye to eye with you, but I can see where your eyes are facing. I can see where your head is looking. I can see where you're going with this. I can understand that you are a person with empathy and compassion. And through your understanding of my point, I'll come to understand your point. And that's how you get somebody to not change their mind. You didn't change their mind, but you have to get them to understand that they can change their own mind. And that's just what we all need to do, period. No matter what side you're on, sides don't matter, they're dumb anyway. It's not about large groups, it's about people. One interaction at a time. Impact the people you can impact. Affect the people you can affect. Touch the people you can touch. And if we start there, then that's how social change happens. That's not to say you shouldn't protest. That's not to say you shouldn't do all the other stuff that comes with like social reform. But if you don't have the energy for it, don't argue. But if you're like me and you love to argue, inform yourself and understand why you believe something before you start to argue. Because your chances of making somebody believe what you've got to say just drastically increases. Just period. Because if they can understand your point, they can understand why they believe something, or maybe that their belief in something isn't found in the same knowledge that yours is. And they don't have to change to your opinion, but they can at least understand and to be able to have a flexible opinion. I'm Nathan. That's what we're talking about today. One take, as always. That's what we're doing. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, links to my socials in the description below. And check out my other stuff. It's really bad, but I'm just having fun with it. Thank you. I appreciate you. Like, subscribe, do what you got to do. And have a wonderful day. I appreciate you.